Hello and welcome to the Spinal Cord Injury Model System Forum. I'm Jeannie Hoffman. I'm one of the co-investigators on the Northwest Regional Spinal Cord Injury Model System in the Department of Rehabilitation Medicine. The forums, the video recordings, and all of our online media content are made possible by a grant from the National Institute on Disability and Rehabilitation Research. Tonight we're very pleased to have two speakers who will be talking about everyday nutrition for individuals with spinal cord injury. Tonight we have the pleasure of having Vickery Barton, who's an Associate Director of Nutrition Services at Harborview Medical Center, and Susie Kim, who's an Occupational Therapy Clinical Specialist. She's also at Harborview Medical Center. So we're grateful to have them tonight. They're each going to do a presentation. We'll then open it up for questions. So we'd prefer if you could hold your questions to the end, if that's all right. Thank you, and welcome to Vickery.
So, of course, just 15 seconds of stage fright, but luckily I don't have to remember my name because I was just introduced. My name is Vickery. I have been at Harborview Medical Center for almost 30 years now, and I have always worked with people who have had spinal cord injury. For the first 20 years I was in the trauma unit when people just first came in with their injury as an inpatient, and then in the last 10 years or so I've worked on the outpatient setting once people are more in the community and coming back for their annual evals and kind of chronic issues that come on. So I've been with this group for a long time. Again, thank you for inviting me back actually to speak. I spoke, it was about 5 years ago here. Anyway, tonight we're going to talk about a number of nutrition issues. There's not any one thing, let's see if this is going to work. Oh, there we go. Not any one issue that is specific to nutrition and spinal cord injury, other than once you have a spinal cord injury, there's a kind of a collection of issues that other people have too, but they kind of come together. Like I said, it's kind of a little group of things to be concerned about, or to at least to address, or at least to know about. So why is nutrition important after a spinal cord injury? There seems to be more increased concerns about diabetes, elevated cholesterol, gaining too much weight. You don't want to gain too much weight. It affects your mobility, it affects your transfers, it affects your skin condition. And it also, because you've taken weight off of your bones, concerns for your bone health are a problem also too. So when I was asked to talk, the let's see, the Consumer Advisory Board, is anybody a member of that here for the spinal cord injury? Okay. Sent a list of things that they thought would be good to talk about, and they included nutritional needs about protein, vitamins, and minerals, how to determine caloric needs, heart disease risk factors, decreased mobility risk factors, low-grade inflammatory response in spinal cord injury and cholesterol, nutrition as far in regards to skin and bowel and bladder, fluid and fiber needs, osteoporosis, and understanding nutrition labels. So just a really small list of things to cover in about 30 minutes. But first of all, I want to say, good questions. I could tell that it was a group that has been on top of what's the latest research and what's come out as far as nutrition and spinal cord injury. So condensing that a little bit, tonight we'll be talking about calorie and protein needs, weight management guidelines, spinal cord injury and heart disease as it affects risk factors, spinal cord injury and bone health, and then what to do as far as to help skin, bowel, and bladder issues. Does that sound like stuff you want to hear about? Is that why you're here? Okay. All right. Not so everyday nutrition topics. That if we have time, I'll talk a little bit about nutrition and pressure sores, and then any recommendations as far as diet supplementation, okay, as far as pills that you would buy kind of thing. Okay, so after I'm done talking, then Susie's going to come up and talk a little bit about how you implement these nutrition goals that we have for you. How can you implement in the kitchen, eating out, shopping, that kind of thing. So that will be kind of our combination for the hour or so. And we'll leave plenty of time for questions because I'm sure you're going to have plenty. One of the other things that I was asked by the group is did I know anything about the American Dietetic Association Evidence-Based Library Spinal Cord Injury Guidelines. And these were guidelines that came out in 2009, and the intent by the Dietetic Association was to create guidelines to tell other dietitians how to help manage people with spinal cord injury and what their nutrition issues are. So I said, yeah, I do know about those because I was one of the 5 people in the nation that helped write them. So I do know a few things. So again, their guidelines, the Dietetic Association has a library. It's all evidence-based, based on scientific research, a review of articles. These articles are then graded to see whether they are valid, or the strength of the research, that maybe it does apply to a number of people, or maybe the people they evaluated, was such a small population and it may not mean a lot. But anyway, that's gone over each article. Those articles are then compiled and guidelines are created. And they have a number of different topics like pediatric weight management, diabetes, renal disease, but spinal cord injury is one of them also. And so, luckily, because the Paralyzed Veterans of America help contribute to the cost of maintaining this library, the public can get into it. Okay, so I wanted to just show you very quickly, I hope, that you can go in and you can go to guidelines. And go down this scroll down this list. And down here is spinal cord injury. Okay. And under executive summary, if you go there, is listed all of the guidelines, and I just kind of wanted to show you briefly what they look like. Okay, so this is just a summary. If you go into this website, you can drill down and drill down and drill down to quite a few layers. But we went through different topics like spinal cord injury, assessment of energy needs in the acute phase, like when you first come into the hospital right after your injury. And then we give the guidelines about how you should be assessed, how many calories you need, how much protein you need. So there's guidelines for each phase of acute, rehab phase, and the community phase on a number of different topics. The intent is not for you to read every single word on here, but the fact that these are all the different areas of care, nutrition care for spinal cord injury that we wrote recommendations for. In fact, there's 2 pages. So again, you can go in and look at those if you want to know how the clinician caring for you, what they should be recommending. Okay, but today, for tonight's purpose, we're going to talk a little bit more general terms. But just so you know, that's what that is. So some of the guidelines then that we had were how much should you weigh after a spinal cord injury, and I can tell you that the data is pretty weak. I mean, that's what we said, was pretty weak. There's not a lot of articles out there, but it suggests that if you're paraplegic, that you should weigh 5 to 10% less than the Metropolitan Life Table. And I handed out, there was a handout that had the Metropolitan Life Tables, which are kind of the best known ideal body weights, okay? And so on it is a table of the regular guidelines, and then you would just subtract 5 to 10% if you're paraplegic, and you would subtract 10 to 15% if you have tetraplegia. You know, the Metropolitan Life Tables, it is an insurance table that was originally created to say if you are over this weight, our general population, that above this weight, you will tend to have more health risk factors, and that's how they determine like insurance values. Okay, so metropolitan, but it's the kind of the standard that's used. When you hear ideal body weight, it's this insurance table. Okay, so like I said, it's kind of weak data, but that's what I have always used to assess people. Now, what health professionals are going to now is assessing the BMI, which is body mass index. Anybody heard of that? Okay, so it's really kind of a combination of what your height and your weight is and what you should be. Okay, and what we said in the guidelines is that for spinal cord injury, you shouldn't use the BMI. It doesn't accurately assess what's the healthiest weight for you because you've lost some muscle, and so it's there. Usually in our charts, in our electronic records, we'll put in height and weight, and it'll calculate the BMI for me automatically, and then I erase that because I don't want it in any of the charts on somebody who has a spinal cord injury. There has been some more recent evidence kind of evaluating what is an appropriate body mass index for people with spinal cord injury, and this is not in our evidence-based library. It's a more recent article from 2009, but it suggests where obesity is typically defined as a BMI over 30, that for spinal cord injury, and you're probably not going to want to hear this, but it may be more like 22, okay? Because you are taking away some muscle mass. If you replace it with body fat, then you're going to want to be lower in terms of helping reduce any other health risks or cardiovascular risks. Okay, so at this point, I would say if you have somebody that tells you what your BMI is, say, I know that's not really appropriate for somebody with a spinal cord injury. They don't know what a good BMI is. What's a healthy one? What's one that would indicate you're overweight or whether you have reached kind of an obesity level? And there's just one study, and this is only like, I think 70 people or so, but it's the healthier, it's going to be a little lower range. And there are some studies going on, around the nation trying to determine how can we define what's a healthy weight for you. Okay? So calorie recommendations. Again, an area that there's not a lot of good evidence about how many calories do you need for just maintenance, for weight gain, for weight loss. But one of the studies that's included in our evidence library suggests that if you have paraplegia, you need about 28 calories per kilogram body weight. Okay, and I would say that's probably more using your ideal body weight and not your actual body weight if you are overweight. Okay, probably somewhere in a blend between that. If you have tetraplegia, you're more like about 22, 23 calories per kilogram body weight for maintenance. Okay, again, not a lot of studies out there, but this is what we have so far. Okay. Protein recommendations. Now these are fairly well defined in the evidence. Protein needs, if you don't have any wounds, then you have the same needs as someone without a spinal cord injury, which is about 0.8 to 1 grams per kilogram body weight. So if you weigh 70 kilos, your need is 70 grams per day for protein, for maintenance. If you have wound healing, or you were just injured, or you have a pressure sore, then that can go up to about 2 grams per kilogram body weight. Okay? Usually I assess if somebody comes in with like a stage 4 pressure ulcer or something, maybe 1.5 to a little bit more than that grams of protein. So if you're 70 kilogram body weight, then I'm going to be recommending that you need like about 110 grams of protein to help heal. And we can talk about that a little bit more. But I'll tell you, most people are not eating that. Okay, so there's a little bit about what your weight should be, how not to use the BMI. Weight control then is always a big question and something that I address with many of my patients. And Usually we kind of go over the same kind of guidelines as far as allow plenty of time to plan and shop for your meals, because planning at the last minute means you'll eat anything in sight. So try to spend some time thinking about what you're going to eat. Mindful eating. Don't skip meals. Eat routinely, 2 or 3 meals a day. When I have people come in and say, well, I have coffee for breakfast, and then I have my morning program, I go through my Bowel program and everything, and then I might have half a sandwich for lunch, and then I have a big dinner. So I really only eat once a day. And you will never lose weight on that kind of routine, because that one big dinner is huge, and then you kind of keep snacking all the way to the time you go to bed. So it's better to eat routinely, spread out your food throughout the day so that you can control your appetite when you do get to the next meal. And it's a lot more comfortable way to try to manage your weight too. Small portion sizes, and I think there's a lot in literature in the newspaper right now. I think there was something in the Seattle Times this week about how plate sizes have increased over the last few decades or so. And when you go to a restaurant and you pay good money, you want the most you can get, but really you probably have about 3 servings on one plate. So when we're counseling people to lose weight, we talk about the plate method, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not. But we usually say, look at your plate. Half of it should be vegetables. A quarter of it should be kind of your meat or your protein. And about a quarter of it should be kind of your starch, like rice or potato or whatever. And so we just think of your plate in terms of kind of quartering it up and eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. Okay. We also talk in terms of portion sizes, and we'll say, it's my fist, but most of you, this is 1 cup, okay? So this is about how much starch you should have at any meal. It's kind of generous, but that's okay. You should have about 3 ounces of meat, which is about the palm of your hand or a deck of cards, okay? So I'm saying, eat your palm, have 1 fistful of mashed potatoes, and then all the vegetables you want, okay? So think in terms of that, okay? It's the portion size, hand language. Other things, eat a variety of foods, protein, grains, fruits and vegetables, low fat, high fiber foods are good, and this involves reading nutrition labels. Does anyone feel like they really understand how to figure out how many calories are fat in any one food? The percent calories and fat? Can you do that? I'm going to go on to the nutritional label. We'll talk a little bit about watch your beverage calories. I have some people come in and tell me they drink a 6-pack of Mountain Dew a day. That's their caffeine habit, but that's also like 900 calories, which is probably at least 50% of what you should be eating calorie-wise per day. So just be aware that you can really drink a lot of calories very quickly. And we'd prefer water, but at least switch to diet soda pop if you can. The other thing is weighing yourself. Now, I know, working in a clinic where we have one of the few wheelchair accessible scales, it's hard to find some place to get yourself weighed routinely. But if you can, that's important. Because it gives you feedback on whether you're doing the right thing. If you're just getting weighed once a year when you come in for your annual visit or whatever, you don't really get a lot of constant feedback on whether I'm eating too much or I'm eating too little. So I encourage you to try to find some place where you can get weighed at least once a month. I have somebody who comes in from downtown basically just to get weighed every month, just to get that feedback, and that person has continually lost, a good amount of weight. So like a 6'7" tetraplegia who's lost 25, 30 pounds over 1 year, but he needed that feedback to know whether he was, eating too much or too little, okay? Okay, so back to the nutrition label. This all looks familiar, right? And I think one of the most important things to know from the nutrition label is, okay, it talks at the top about serving size, how many servings are in a container. Oftentimes you'll think, oh, this is one serving because it's only, you know, a small entree or something, but be aware that it might be 2 or 3, okay? So read that. But it's also important, here's the total calories, and here's the calories from fat. So can you see the numbers up there? That it's almost half fat calories. It's 50% fat. I think it's ice cream. It's funny because I had the label, but not what it was. But I'm pretty sure it's ice cream. But anything that's 50% fat is too high in fat, okay? You want to stick with foods or casseroles or frozen dinners that are more about 30% fat at the most, okay? Any questions about that? Like I said, it's funny because, you know, they give you a lot of information, but the one thing that's very helpful to know, you have to sit down and figure it out. You have to do the math, okay? What does help is physical activity. So just, you know, in our guidelines, we included that being active any way that you can, whether it's, you know, it's a wheelchair sports, swimming, electrical stim sort of exercises, or treadmill training, or simply going down to the local mall in the morning and wheeling up and down with the walkers, you know. Being as active as you can will help, because the inactivity is what causes a lot of the concerns about nutrition and spinal cord injury. Okay, weight gain, some of your cholesterol changes, your bone density has to do with, you know, the inactivity that's going to happen. So moving along, okay, so spinal cord injury, as far as how does that put you at higher risk for heart disease, if you have gained weight, if you are getting a wider around the middle, your waist circumference, and if your lipid values are starting to go up, those put you more at risk for heart disease. So at our annual visit, we do check your lipid profile, your cholesterol, your triglycerides each year, and monitor what's going on there. Typically, you want your cholesterol to be under 200. You want your triglycerides to be less than 150. You want your LDL, lower density lipids, the lousy cholesterol, to be under 130, and your HDL, I always call it the healthy cholesterol, you want it to be more than 40. But of note, in research and in practice, you hardly ever see anybody who has an HDL that's as high as 40. It is influenced by activity, and so most of the patients I see have a HDL more like 29 or 30 or so, okay? And then, you know, you need to watch the fat in your diet and try to be as active as possible, but don't be surprised you're in there with everybody else if you're less than 40. Okay, that's just one of the things that we kind of see. Okay, so moving along. A little bit about C-reactive protein. It's a protein in your body that is created when there's stress in your body, okay? Some kind of inflammation. And it has, over the last few years, been tied with a risk for heart disease. I don't know if in spinal cord injury it's any more than anybody else. But so sometimes you'll have your C-reactive protein measured, and if it's above 3, you could be at higher risk for heart disease. But the main thing I want to point out is that anytime you have any kind of stress, so if you have a UTI or you have a pressure sore, this C-reactive protein is going to be up anyway. So anytime it's checked, you need to look, but do I have other sources of inflammation or infection that could be causing it to go up, and not typically, or, you know, this time associated with heart disease. Okay, so diet recommendations: if you are at risk for heart disease and your cholesterol's up, watch your fat intake, do low-fat cooking methods, low-fat dairy products, eat more fish, aim for a healthy weight, stop smoking, and again, be as active as possible. Okay, I need to keep moving along here. Quickly, bone health. This is one thing that I go over a lot with my patients, is that because you've taken gravity off of your bones, they're more at risk at an earlier time for loss of bone density. Okay, so if you fall out of your chair, you're more at risk for breaking a hip, breaking a leg or something. So we want you to try to maintain that bone density as much as possible. And that involves then eating calcium. Okay, so have many people had a DEXA scan done? I see a couple hands. And usually a couple years after injury, that might be something you want to have checked, and you go have this x-ray test, and it'll tell how dense your bones are, whether you're fine, whether you have osteopenia, meaning that you're losing some density, or if you have osteoporosis and you've actually lost a lot of bone density. And there are ways to try to prevent that, and it is by eating calcium, eating dairy products, adequate vitamin D, again, be active, limit caffeine, stop smoking. There are some medications that help, like Fosamax, Didonate, and just try not to fall. Good sources of calcium, again, the best source is your dairy products, okay? I always say if you can eat 3 dairy products a day, like milk and cheese, ice cream, not so much, yogurt, Greek yogurt's great, then you're going to get enough calcium. It's also in dark leafy green vegetables, canned salmon, but you have to eat, a truckload to get enough. So try to get enough good calcium. If you are milk intolerant or you just don't drink, milk, there are calcium supplements that you can try. Tums is actually a very inexpensive way to get enough calcium. Usual dose is about 500 milligrams twice a day. Okay, nutrition and neurogenic bowel. Main thing I want to emphasize here is eating enough fiber. Talk about, transit through bowel time. Try to drink enough fluids and eat enough fiber. And we used to say eat more fiber than this 15 to 20 grams per day. It was, I think the recommendations for Americans is 25 to 35 grams per day. But we've actually found in some patients with spinal cord injury that more is not better, and that a moderate amount might be most well tolerated for you. Okay, but fiber is important. Eat fruits and vegetables. As far as nutrition and neurogenic bladder, drink plenty of fluids. As far as the cranberry option, the only study that has been proven to be effective is cranberry juice, drinking about 1 cup 3 times a day. Okay? Cranberry tablets, which I know a lot of people take, overall the evidence does not prove that they work. So if you're taking them and you're like, yeah, but then I never had a UTI after that, well, then keep doing it, But if it's not working for you, you're part of the bulk of the evidence that says it doesn't work, so don't spend your money on that. It was one of those things where they found a food was effective, but trying to put it into a pill form, something got lost in the translation. Quickly, pressure sores, evidence, you can go to the website from the American Dietetic Association. Your calorie needs are going to be up some. Your protein needs are going to be up quite a bit. That really you may need up to 2 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. And I usually evaluate 1 or 2 people with pressure sores every week. I go through a diet history with them to see what they're eating, and inevitably they're meeting about 40% of their needs. Okay? You can't get enough protein in by eating 1 or 2 times a day. You have got to be eating 3, 4, 5 times a day, and very conscientious of what your protein sources are. Meat and eggs and fish, milk, protein bars, Carnation Instant Breakfast, Ensure, whatever you want to use that fits your lifestyle or for the amount of time that you're bed bound for, trying to heal. Like I said, rarely do I see somebody eating quite enough. And once we counsel them on, you need to increase here and let's do that during the day, and they come back and they are starting to heal, assuming there's other factors that have been taken care of too. But it's very important. As far as other vitamins and minerals that you would need for wound healing, you don't need anything if you don't have a deficiency documented by a blood test. Okay? So we usually check your vitamin C, your vitamin A, zinc levels. If they're fine, you don't need more. The point is more is not better, okay? So usually if you're eating a variety of foods, you wouldn't need any supplementation, but if you're trying to heal, we will check for you and see if there is something that we can give you that you should target. All right, nutrition supplements, just most people with spinal cord injury. In this one study of 77 people, they were taking multivitamins, calcium, and vitamin D, which aren't a bad three to choose if you need to. Again, only if you have deficiency would you really need them. And in the resource sheet that I gave you, in this, there is a couple of websites that are really good to evaluate whether some of the supplements that you want to take are of value or not. So if you want to take cinnamon, or you're taking, what's another one, echinacea or something like that, you can go to them and you put that in and it'll tell you whether it's effective or likely effective or not effective at all, if it's safe. So this is good. The one is by NIH, National Institute of Health. The other one, National Medicine Comprehensive Database. It used to be free, but now I'm afraid it might be a subscription. But it's a very good source too. Okay, that's it for the basic nutrition area. And now Susie's going to talk to you about how to implement some of these things into your everyday living. And at the end, then we'll answer any more questions, okay? All right, thank you.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about what could be stopping you from making this change. There's all this nutritional information you got, and it's a lot of information, and how do you kind of implement it in a practical manner into your lifestyle? So, there's a lot of reasons. Obviously, a lot of people tell me convenience. A lot of people tell me about access, cost. There seems to be some thoughts that it costs a lot more to eat healthier. And, there's a lot of debate about that. Obviously, preparing it, and for some, taste. So I'm going to start from the beginning. Like, where do we get this food? There's a variety of different areas. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of places: the grocery store, online, farmers market, gardens, and of course, eating out. So the most important thing, and I think Vickery mentioned it earlier, is really planning ahead. That tends to help you the most. Planning ahead and making a list, because there's nothing more intimidating than going in front of the grocery store and seeing this row of vegetables and being like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? So by planning ahead, getting online, looking, getting cookbooks. I think there's a few up here. Sorry. Getting some cookbooks too and going through them and just finding simple recipes. I say go simple. Don't try to make a gourmet meal in your first step out, because there's usually too much butter in it. But go really, really simple. Just try to add one new vegetable or one new thing in. You could have as many vegetables as you want. So try to make it really simple. Most of the larger stores, they have assistance if you need it. It's fantastic for that. They'll send a shopper around with you to kind of grab things if you need it. The trick of the trade, I say, is try to purchase what you can carry, because then you don't end up over purchasing. And that's kind of the hard thing too, because it can be really intimidating to all of a sudden buy all these vegetables and then at the end of the week see yourself throwing them out because they've gone bad. And then you feel like, well, this is too difficult, or you feel guilty. And so instead of kind of turning it to that, just go really simple. One thing great about grocery stores, obviously, you can use both cash or credit cards, whichever is easier. And they also accept coupons, so that kind of helps out. And you can comb the newspapers on Sundays to see where there's a deal. I know there's a lot of things out there, but kind of wanted to show you guys a couple of things that are available. There are these front luggage riggers that can go in the front that you can put a basket on. I found this on Amazon for like $14 the bag. It's a collapsible bag, so it's not really noticeable, but it's great because everyone's carrying their own grocery totes too, so you don't look like, it doesn't look any different. A lot of the bags that stores even offer, because they're no longer going plastic, those are great. They have large handles they can hook on behind your wheelchair, or backpacks. I see a lot of backpacks already, so they're fantastic. And at the grocery store, they're great. They'll pack it up for you. They do carry, this bag right here, it's insulated, which is kind of nice, because then, if you have a long bus ride or drive or anything like that, your small little ice cream could make the trip home. So the question was, what were these bags called? And they're just collapsible baskets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of prettier designs too. So I'm not sure if you guys are very familiar. We're really lucky. Basic Seattle area. Amazon started grocery things. So it's called fresh.amazon.com. And some parts of Safeway also offers it. So I don't know if you guys are very familiar. It's fantastic because, you know, it lets you really plan ahead, but it also lets you take your time. So it's really super convenient for that factor. I mean, you can't fight that the delivery's to your doorstep. That's pretty convenient. They accept credit cards. They don't have a lot of coupons, but I'm going to be honest, the prices are pretty reasonable, especially due to the size of things. I don't know if you guys are familiar. There's a lot of, in this area, there's a lot of co-ops and individual farms that also do door-to-door delivery or weekly or monthly packages. So you get, you know, vegetables that they've kind of picked out. So you get a little variety of vegetables, and you try things that you never thought you would ever try too. Since moving to Seattle, I've become a big fan of Brussels sprouts. I've never tried them before until there. You can also get fresh milk and then also meat products for your protein. So again, I kind of wanted to show you guys a little bit. Like with Amazon, they come in these boxes, and so they also have these safety clips on them to say that, you know, no one's kind of messed with them and you have to break them, which is kind of nice. They are a little deep, and they get delivered to your home. Some of the other smaller co-ops, they require you to provide the ice box. So I kind of wanted to show you, this is a great little ice box. It has wheels. It's not super deep. Depending on how many people you're feeding and these vegetables are for, I mean, you could obviously go bigger. It's kind of nice because it has a telescoping handle, so if you needed to hook onto something, it could get modified if it needed to hook onto your wheels, or if you just needed to carry it in. And if you had the arm strength, although you should be preserving your shoulders, you could pick it up and bring it into your home. One of the things you can do with that, because it is a fairly deep box, you can kind of create an elevated platform in order to have access to it. The delivery day is usually set, so you're pretty familiar with it. So for some of you who have some assistance or need some assistance, it's perfect because you kind of pick and choose the days that you have that, and they can help you put away the things, especially if they're perishable. I think it's a fantastic resource for large staple items. Like, you know, it is much more cost efficient. I'm not sure exactly what the term would be. Thank you, cost effective if you buy larger, but then it's not really practical if you're carrying it. You know, it makes it a little more challenging. So it's kind of nice when it gets delivered. And then if you need additional assistance, when you know someone's coming in, then you can downsize them to more practical containers for you to use on a day-to-day basis. So there's farmers markets too. I mean, we have a lot of them here in the Seattle area. They offer a variety of things. My biggest thing, it's a nice social event. There's a lot of people around. It's nice to see everything and see it up close. My biggest recommendation is to get to know the vendors. If you're loyal to them, they're pretty loyal to you. They'll put aside, if they know you're coming, they'll put aside, like the hot commodity I found is fresh eggs. Those go really quickly. But if they know you're coming down, they'll put it aside for you because they know. I mean, it's a relationship that's developed. They also love to trade. It's a very strong community. It's perfect for small amounts, so you don't tend to feel like, oh my gosh, it's such a deal. That bulk item is such a deal. I got to purchase it. You know, they only have like little bits of parsley, so it's not like you're going to be like, oh, I have to buy the whole pack. It's picked pretty ripe, so it's really flavorful. So if that was a concern, it's great for that, but you do really have to make something pretty soon. Most often it's cash only. The hours are fantastic because typically they're 10 to 2, so it's usually after everything, all the self-care and everything that's needed, so it's a nice social time too. Gardens. I don't know if it could be your own personal garden, it could be your friend's garden. Small potted plants can also be a little garden. You could create an herb garden. Those are nice, and you can elevate those to kind of increase the, if you wanted to improve the flavor of something. You know, basil grows really well indoors. Tomatoes grow like crazy. Another thing would be pea patches if you don't have your own personal space. A lot of neighborhoods have pea patches. There's a pretty large one in Magnuson and a couple of other larger ones, I think in Rainier Beach too. So you could have elevated planting beds to put up, and then you can also put stone and hard packed gravel for the footpath to make it a little bit easier, because except for probably maybe the powers, those front casters can get stuck fairly easily if they're pretty small in the gravel. So, you know, you can kind of prepare, because you can kind of pick and choose to a certain point with pea patches. You can kind of make a request. There are some that are a little more accessible out there, so you can make some requests. And if you have some friends around, they, you know, to just make sure that path is more accessible for you, that would be great. One of the great thing about gardens is it gives you a lot, you know, you tend to grow a lot of things, so it gives you a big opportunity to experiment and try different things. Even if you know, if you didn't like it one way, you can try it a different. So I'm going to talk a little bit about eating out. Obviously, it's probably the most convenient because it's already prepared. It takes out a big section of what you have to think about, what you have to do about, what you have to do with it, or they don't tend to have nutritional labels on them either. So it's a nice little passivity of being like, well, I didn't know, and it was good. So here's a couple of websites. This website for nutritional information, dietfacts.com /fastfood.asp, offers a lot of nutritional information for even fast food and different restaurants. You can put in like chicken salad, and then it'll kind of offer up chicken salad at McDonald's and all this other stuff. So then you can look at the nutritional information. And I'll tell you, once you start looking at that nutritional information, it's pretty, you know, the next time around, maybe not at that moment, if you're really craving it, I understand that. But the next time around, you may think, you know, I saw what it was like at McDonald's compared to what it was like at Burger King. Maybe I'll try Burger King next time. Or even after looking at that, like this favorite restaurant, well, maybe I don't have to eat the fish and chips every single time I'm there. You know, maybe I'll try, break it up a little bit and have some salad or split it. For some of you guys who have smartphones and you really want to know in the moment, there is a couple of apps, Restaurant Nutrition and Lose It, that offer the nutritional information or the caloric information, especially the fat calorie information is available. I'm just going to show you guys real quick. This is kind of what it looks like. This is the nutritional one. So you could search by food and then, or search by restaurants, and then it'll give you the whole nutritional facts. And as Vickery said, kind of the calories from fat is what you're going to be paying attention to. So it's kind of really made it really convenient to become more nutritionally savvy. But I think the most important thing is to pay attention to is obviously, you know, the calories from fat. But you can punch in a lot of different things and find out a lot of different things about different restaurants. So now we're going to get to the, the cooking it up, the prep work. So I'm just going to go down. So now that you've brought all this food home, one of the things, I don't know if you guys have ever used, you know, the simple tray like this with the border happens to be a great lap tray. And also, if access is an issue, it's a perfect prep table, because you could put a cutting board, a wooden cutting board in there, and then you can use this as a cutting table. What's ideal too, if it's wooden, then it could also be used kind of like as a trivet if you're carrying any hot items you want to take care of. So this is kind of nice. I didn't bring a whole lot of the other stuff, I'm sorry. I wanted to show you guys, are you guys familiar with I Am Bonnie? So she is a C5, C6 tetraplegic. Check it out, because she offers a lot of, you know, she kind of shows different ways to make her, that she made her kitchen accessible, and different tricks of the trade. And I you know, considering you can see her hand function, she does most of her own cooking. She has about 57 videos. It's on the handout too, so if you guys want to check it out in your own time. It's really quite useful. Some of the things she offers, she didn't offer this part, but I've seen it. I've seen other people who've used it and said they've really enjoyed it. It's kind of tools for prep. there's a lot of commercial things available these days, which is fantastic. And obviously there are a lot of things available online. XO makes a variety of wide-handled cooking items that would be great. One thing that's great about them, they're also plastic, so if they need to be melted down or molded in some way to make it more personal to you and more useful, then that can be done. A lot of bowls are made that are bigger and they have grips on the bottom so they don't tend to spill as much. And I already talked about the lap tray. So we're winding up. So a couple of things that I found is really useful, because if you can't spend a lot to make huge accommodations in your home, like redo a whole new kitchen to make it accessible, one of the most convenient things are actually electric griddles and skillets. Have you guys seen them? They're more portable, and you can place them on any table that you do have access to. And so you can cook things up fairly easily. You can boil water on them. You can, you know, if you want to make pasta, or if you want to do vegetables or stir fry, you can bring it a little bit closer to you without the risk of burning yourself or reaching over. The microwave, very popular. You can reheat pretty much anything, and push buttons can be built up if needed. And they make some older microwaves with knobs if they're, you know, if that's something that's a little more interesting. The door handles, there's a lot of different designs available that the door handles are a lot easier to reach. The ones that stick out a little bit more so you can kind of get in there. You could also build something up to that to pull on it, because biceps, if that's what you got, then you can just kind of hook in there and pull on it to bring it open. Toaster ovens. Oh, I love toaster ovens, because again, you can bring that a lot closer. You really decrease the risk of burning yourself. Whatever utensil you use to eat it with, you can open that toaster oven door open, pull it back, and grab whatever you're going to eat. So it's fantastic for smaller meals. If throughout the day, if you're supposed to be eating a little more frequently and you really enjoy hot meals versus cold meals, then it's a nice resource to have versus heating up your whole oven for, you know, one item, or putting on all the protective wear that I usually recommend people wear when they're using a conventional oven to protect their forearms. If you're lifting with internal rotation to pull out something, you know, I usually make strong recommendations to wear very long sleeves that are available. There's barbecue sleeves usually is what I recommend, but they're really heavy. Okay, here are some of our resources. And so now we're open to some questions. Tips to make nutritional blended drinks more nutritional.
So like a smoothie. And one thing with a blender, I know that they talk about the immersible blenders. Does anybody have those? I can't remember what brand it is, but it's actually easier. Instead of having the one where you have the jug that you put on top and blenderize, it's just and watch the blades once you turn it on, but you can just immerse it into a cup and blenderize things up too. So that's a more handy type style. Smoothies, if you go to
Jamba Juice.
Jamba Juice, there we go. That is a meal practically, and usually they're a fruit and a juice and maybe a yogurt base, which actually is pretty nutritional. I mean, you could put in a little bit of bran flakes to get more fiber with your orange juice and yogurt and strawberries, and have what's about a meal, because you've got protein and fruit in there. So that's not a bad idea. I mean, I also work with people who have fractured mandibles, so their whole diet is blenderized, but we haven't blenderized chili and cans of Progresso, soup or something like that. I mean, you can blenderize almost anything kind of thing and be fairly nutritious. I want to go over just, Susie brought up there were some cookbooks here. It's always fun when we get ready to do a talk to see what's new out there. And so I did go looking for recipes for people with spinal cord injury. And there are a couple books out there by chefs who are paraplegic. Okay, I wouldn't say the recipes are easy. They are not, oh, I'm just getting home and I want to fix something in 20 minutes. This one's called Cooking with Corey, and he's from British Columbia, and it's just a fairly new book, and it's just beautiful as far as the pictures. But we're not all going to be making black and blue tuna sushi with chili lime mayo tonight, I don't think. So it's just a gorgeous book, and I think the recipes look good, but it's not a quick and dirty sort of book. There's another one you can download called Erin's Cookin', and again, it was one where it was just a bunch of fairly simple recipes. I mean, simply produced or whatever, but again, they are, you know, roast pork loin with cherry mustard sauce. So good recipes, but not quick. So then I went more to looking for, you know, a cookbook for a toaster oven. So you can go to Amazon.com and start looking for, you know, recipes that use a blender, recipes that use a toaster oven, and probably find more useful quick type recipes when you kind of take that avenue. Rachel Ray?
Yeah.
That's what Every Day with Rachel Ray? Yeah, I mean, you just need to look at what's in it. And she does tend to cook healthfully, but then there'll be something with a bunch of sour cream in it, or, you know, nachos or something like that. So again, if she has I don't know if she has nutrition values on some of her stuff. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I don't think so. Not in her books. Not
Okay.
in her
Yeah, they're
recipe
not
books.
required. So, like if you get the American Heart Association kind of cookbooks, they have the nutrient information in there, or sometimes, you know, being a dietitian, I have 50 cookbooks or something like that. And what do I do anymore is I get on the internet and I Google, you know, I have a piece of chicken tonight. What can I do with it with, you know, cilantro or something like that? And you Google that and all the recipes will come up, and sometimes they have nutrition information and sometimes they don't. One thing I wanted to comment about nutrition information in restaurants. You live in a county that has mandated that restaurants that have over, can't remember if it's 20 sites or 15 sites, they have to provide you calorie and nutrient information. So usually that's available. Take a look at it, and oh my gosh, sometimes it's scary. You know, Red Robin or something. I think they don't know yet whether that has changed people's way that they're ordering or what they're choosing, but I'll tell you, Starbucks, I mean, who doesn't love a scone and a latte in the morning? All of their pastry things were about 400 calories, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And you know, just in the last couple months, they've come out with what's called the bite size, I don't know, some little cookie on a popsicle stick and little mini scones. I think people were reading those original values and stopped buying, and so now they're offering something that's just a taste but only about 150 calories. So it does make a difference to have that nutrient information. A lot of times when we go out to eat, again, we don't want to know, but because it's a special day, but we all eat out a lot. And it's good to have that information to kind of pace yourself, pace your day.
So
Oh,
the question was,
sorry,
have you heard of-
hungrygirl.com, right?
And then she's got some cookbooks too.
I'm not familiar with her either, but I think if you're going to make a big change, I think it is go as easy and simple as possible in the beginning, and then, you know, as you become more comfortable in the kitchen, as you could become more comfortable in the kitchen, tweak away. I totally believe in it. Unless you're baking, it's the only thing that you really have to follow to the T.
There's another series called Eat This, Not That. And it's like, eat this, not that in the restaurant, eat this, not that, you know, and it's got some recipes, and those are kind of fun little colorful books you can get at Costco about half price that offer, you know, how to reduce calories in your favorite things too. Another question I wanted to follow up on was the smartphones. I see over here working on one. Who else uses a smartphone or an iPad? Okay, so really look at, on our resource list, there's a thing about rating the top 10 nutrition apps, and look to see if any of those will work for you. I just find people using them, I'll say, well, tell me what you ate, and they'll just hold up their smartphone. You know? and of course, then we have to go like this so I can see it. But it's really a neat little tool. especially the ones where if you are diligent enough to put into it everything you've eaten for a week, it's really a surprise, and it does help modify your eating habits too if you're trying to lose weight particularly. So I mean, there's nothing like a person, they've eaten really well during the week. Oh, you look, you've stayed to 1,500 calories, you stayed to 1,800 calories, but oh, look at that Saturday night. Somehow you ate 4,000 calories on the weekend. And they'll have it down on their little iPhone or whatever, and it does, with that feedback, slowly start to change behaviors, going, maybe one less margarita that Saturday night will kind of help balance out or whatever. So it is a neat tool. I mean, I don't have an iPhone yet either until I get a couple college kids off my phone plan, but I can't wait because I do think there are some pretty neat little applications there. The question is about eating from the rainbow, which is kind of a way to look at eating, promoting more fruits and vegetables, and are there colors in the rainbow that are more important to people with spinal cord injury than others? I would say not particularly. I see that, in fact, it was handed out this evening, I think it was from you, the superfood use list, which I've actually done talks using that kind of list before too. And a lot of the foods that are considered to help with anti-inflammation foods, like blueberries, nuts, fish, dark leafy green vegetables. Calling them superfoods is one way to look at it, but it really goes back to eating a variety of foods: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, low-fat protein. You know, there's been a lot of different kinds of diets over the years, whether it was an Atkins diet or a South Beach diet. And I can tell you, as the dietitian for the last 35 years, I'm still going, yeah, but it's just fruits and vegetables and whole grains, and low-fat protein is a healthy way to eat. And, you know, that's still the main message. What's the value of tofu is the question. You know, I'm not sure what the fat content is. It's a soybean. It is a soy oil, so it's vegetable oil, so it's not an animal fat, which is good. You know, tofu is just another option for protein. So if you are a vegetarian or a vegan and you want to avoid animal meats or dairy products, then it's a good choice for you, but there's no particular reason to single it out as being extra special if you're fine with all the other sources of protein too. Okay? Anything else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much, and a round of applause. Fantastic.